Paramahamsa Parivraj Jagacharya. Astote Astota Srimad, His Divine Loving Grace of Acharya Aravinda, Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki. BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivraj Jagacharya. Astote Astota Srimad, His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki. Haridas Thakur Ki. Kuntra Srimad Bhagavatam Ki. Nitai Gaur Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru, Sri Gauranga. Hare Krishna. Om Ajnanatamarandhyasya Gnanjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Sri Gurue Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeyam Shri Guru Shri Utapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Shagajatam Sagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesh Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostite Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavanishwari Vishubhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Namaste Girirajaya Shri Govardhana Namane Ashesha Klesha Nashaya Paramananda Daine Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyeva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Mareka Bandho Mat Sangin, Mad Guru Mad Madana, Mad Mistaraka Mad Bhagya, Mad Ananda Namostite. Sadhu, Sadhu Tadayin, Adini Chotata Kara, Hanamuncha Karachinmam, Prem Norit Katayos Puraha. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritta Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devyam Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet Nastapreshu Bhadasevaya Bhagavate Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. Hare Krishna, everybody. So our seminar was canceled, and so now I was asked to give class on the spot, which I haven't done yet since I've been back. I've been always preparing. It's nice to prepare, actually. You can, but it's always nice to give class on the spot too, because Krishna will give you so many things to say. So we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam. My voice is a little bad. Maybe I could get a cough drop. My voice is a little bad, so forgive me. We're reading from Canto 4, Creation of the Fourth Order, chapter number 27, Attack by Chandavega on the city of Paranjana. Chapter number 22, text number 22. Mai samrabhya vipula marach chapam surusaham statu marhasi naikatra madyanshna vimuko mune Mai samrabhya vipula marach chapam surusaham statu marasi naikatra madhyachna vimuko mune Mai samrabhya vipula marach chapam surusaham statu marasi naikatra madhyachna vimuko mune. One more time. Mai samrabhya vipula marach chapam surusaham statu marasi naikatra madhyachna vimuko mune. Mai samrabhya vipula marach chapam surusaham statu marasi naikatra madhyachna vimuko mune. Mai samrabhya vipula marach chapam surusaham statu marasi naikatra madhyachna vimuko mune. Mai samrabhya vipula marach chapam surusaham statu marasi naikatra madhyachna vimuko mune. Mai samrabhya vipula marach chapam surusaham statu marasi naikatra madhyachna vimuko mune. Word for word. Mai, unto me. Samrabhya, having become angry. Vipula, unlimited. Madat, out of illusion. Shapam, curse. Sudusaham, unbearable. Statu marasi, you may remain. Na, never. Ekatra, in one place. Mat, my. Yachna, request. Mukha, having refused. Mune, O great sage. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace. By Bhaktivedanta Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The great sage Narada continued, "When I refused to accept her request, she became very angry at me and cursed me severely. Because I refused her request, she said that I would not be able to stay in one place for a long time." The great sage Narada continued, refused to accept her request. She became very angry at me and cursed me severely. Because I refused her request, she said that I would not be able to stay in one place for a long time. Purport. The great sage Narada Muni has a spiritual body. Therefore, old age, disease, birth, and death do not affect him. Narada is the most kind devotee of the Supreme Lord, and his only business is to travel all over the universe and preach God consciousness. In other words, his business is to make everyone a Vaishnava. In the circumstances, there is ordinarily no need for him to stay in one place for more than the time he requires to preach, since by his own free will he is traveling all over the universe. The curse of Kalakanya is described as fortunate. Like Narada Muni, many other devotees of the Lord are engaged in preaching the glories of the Lord in different places and in different universes. Such personalities are beyond the jurisdiction of material laws. Namaste Jivananda Dasa Avanine Prabhupada Vallabhaya Srinasi Lavanoline Agyana Dvantagamanam Prashtitatatmanam Jnana Guru Teya Chita Harine Chakshashena Maha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namane Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Prachadare Nirvashesha Shanyavadi Paschachade Shatare. So here we're hearing Narada Muni's telling the description of King Paranjana to King Prachini Barshtat, because King Prachini Barshtat is very much engaged in fruitive activities. So Maitreya Muni is telling the lineage of Swayambhuva Manu. Swayambhuva Manu was a great devotee of the Lord, one of the 12 Mahajans. And so in this narration, we've been hearing since the third canto, Maitreya Muni is explaining these different events that take place in the lineage of Swayambhuva Manu. Starting with Devahuti. Devahuti is the daughter of Swayambhuva Manu, who was married to the great sage incarnation of Krishna. He was married to the great sage Kardama, who was the father of the great sage Kapila, who's an incarnation of Krishna. Then we heard about Prashuti in the beginning of the fourth canto, and she's the wife of Daksha. We heard about Akuti, and we heard about Uttanapad, who is the father of Dhruva, and we heard about the lineage of Uttanapad, Dhruva Maharaj, and down the line, we heard about Maharaj in Vena, and we heard about King Anga, the father of Vena, who was a great devotee. Then we heard about the various kings, and then we've come to the point of Prachini Barshtat, who is the father of the Prachetas. The Prachetas were sent to perform austerities. And in the performance of their austerities, they came in contact with Lord Shiva, and Lord Shiva enlightened them in the process of pure devotional service. And they became enlightened beings rather than materialistic, like King Prachini Barshtat. But because King Prachini Barshtat is so much engaged in fruitive activities, Narada Muni is telling him an analogy of King Paranjana. So then we hear the story, the history of King Paranjana, which is our history, of how we wanted to enjoy the material body. And there's various analogies that Narada Muni will explain later on. And Prabhupada's explaining somewhat in the purports. But we hear how he became attracted to lusty intelligence in the form of woman. And from that point on, he began to enjoy in the city of 9 gates, which is our body. And there's the lower gates, and then there's the upper gates, and we try to enjoy through all these different gates. And now the time of death is approaching. Death is time, who is called Chandavega. And death has a daughter whose name is old age, right? Jara, the daughter of death, the daughter of time. And so Jara, no one wants, she's looking for a husband, but no one wants to accept her. However, when she approaches Narada Muni, he refuses her. Although everybody has to accept her, she refuses. Narada Muni is able to refuse her because it's described he's a Nishtik Brahmachari. That doesn't just mean like he's a celibate. It means he's Brahmachari, meaning that he engages all his senses and all his energy in the service of Krishna. In that way, he is sustained, spiritually sustained. And of course, he's got a spiritual body, so he doesn't, suffer the same way that we suffer in these material bodies. And so I think what I'll do is I'll talk a little about Narada, because we generally think about Narada as a very, very, of course, he's our supreme Param Guru. He's highly elevated. But it's an encouraging thought when we remember how Narada became Narada. Anybody remember?
Because of his service.
Service to who? Yeah, the sages. Prabhupada translates them to Bhakti Vedantas. Prabhupada was Narada Muni was rendering service as a child. He was a Gandharva in his life before that, and he was at a Kirtan festival, but he decided to sing rock and roll instead. And so they cursed him, and he had to become a Sudra in his next life. And so in his next life, he became the son of a maidservant, and he didn't know who his father was. Engaged in the pastimes and activities of serving people as they come through like a hotel, And during the time of Chaturmas, the great sages, they come and they rest. And so where Narada Muni was assisting his mother. And it's described that Narada Muni, he was a very good boy. He was a good boy. He didn't really engage in games. He didn't engage in speak. He was very quiet. He was very refined. And he was very eager to serve and to hear. So these sages began discussing Krishna Katha, this is the power of Krishna Katha. I was hearing this morning. Prabhupada was speaking on this verse. Shrinvatam swakata Krishna punya shravana kirtanam hridyantasto hyabadrani vidanoti saritsatam. That Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead in everybody's heart, who is the well-wisher and benefactor of his truthful devotees, purifies their hearts if they are eager to hear his messages, which are in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. So what this verse is explaining is Shrinvatam Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana, that one develops punya, one develops pious activities, one develops actual real agyata sukriti, bhakti mukhi agyata sukriti. One develops this propensity to actually develop their original spiritual consciousness by hearing Krishna Katha. So simply by hearing Krishna Katha, one develops in spiritual consciousness. And Prabhupada says that when we go on Harinam, we're forcing them to become pious, because they're hearing Krishna's holy name. And Punya Shravana Kirtanam, just by hearing the holy name, they're forced to become pious. So Krishna explains that one can't understand him unless one is freed from sin. So therefore, there's a process of purification that must take place. And that process begins with this chanting of the holy name and this hearing of Krishna Katha. So we go out on Harinam, Or when someone comes and they see we're speaking about Krishna, and they hear some little bit, like me and Divya Singh Prabhu and Gauranga Prema and Bhakta Omar, we were at the Vasudev yesterday, and we were speaking so much about Krishna. And people were hearing, and they had to have been thinking, these guys with shaved heads are talking about seeing God. And they had to have been thinking, this is a very strange conversation for a gym. But nonetheless, if people hear this, they are forced to become pious. They're forced to become purified. So this is the importance of hearing. And in the Bhagavatam, that point is made, like time and time again, that point is made. One should hear. One should hear. One should simply hear the pastimes of the Lord. Ayoharati vaipumsam udyamastam chiyanasau. Tasyarte yakchino nita uttama shloka vartaya. That the sun, the rising and the setting of the sun, decreases the lifespan of everybody except for those who engage in hearing the pastimes of the Lord. And in one lecture, Srila Prabhupada explains that you cannot be happy. You cannot be happy unless you engage in this Shravanam, this Punya Shravanam. We must hear Krishna Lila. Only in that way can we be purified and rectify our situation and become situated in our original consciousness. So Narada Muni, he was hearing the pastimes and the activities and the philosophy of Krishna consciousness from his from the sages, the Bhaktivedanta sages who were staying at this inn he was working at. And he became attached to hearing. And by that hearing, he became completely purified. And he asked the sages on one occasion, very respectfully, if he can take their remnants, which is a very powerful thing to do, to take the remnants, the Maha Prasadam of great saintly people. And so he took those remnants, and at that time he became completely purified. And the sages left, but by Krishna's arrangement, Narada Muni's mother, who was his only guardian and his well-wisher and the person who took care of him, she went out and she was bitten by a snake. And so upon being bitten by a snake, she died. And the 5-year-old Narada Muni was alone in the world. And so what did he do? He went out into the forest and he started walking and he started chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And as he was going along his way, he passed through cities and villages, through deserts and valleys, through mines. And at one point he became tired and he sat under a tree and he began to meditate upon Lord Krishna in the heart. And as he was meditating, he saw the Lord appeared to him and he witnessed the Lord. And tears began to flow from his eyes. He became full of ecstasy upon seeing Lord Krishna. And Narada Muni was so ecstatic, but then Krishna disappeared. And so when he tried to meditate again, Krishna did not appear. And then the voice of Krishna came to him and said, I won't appear to you again in this lifetime, but you'll always think of me and you'll always want to see me again. Therefore, continue your spiritual practice, and in your next life, you will become Narada Muni, and you'll see me all the time. So we're not Narada Muni, but this gives us a lot of hope because the Srinvatam Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtanam, we're hearing from the Bhaktivedantas, we're hearing from Srila Prabhupada, and if we actually seriously engage in this process of hearing the Lord's pastimes and hearing the Bhagavatam, then all that is troublesome within the heart will be completely eradicated, and loving service to the personality of Godhead will be established. So we're hearing these pastimes. We have to develop taste for hearing. We have the whole procedure Srila Prabhupada had given us. And just by his mercy, by him being present, we're able to advance spiritually, by him ever coming to this world. Because in the second chapter of the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, there's a series of verses, verses 16 through 22. These verses are the process of Bhakti Yoga. And Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur elaborates on that. And the first one he says is Shru Shru Shro Shradanasya Vasudeva Kataruchi Syan Mahat Sevaya Vipra Punyatirthana Shevanat. This is the beginning of our devotional service, that we have to develop some affinity for hearing about Krishna. We have to develop Vasudeva Kata Ruchihi. We have to develop affinity for hearing about Krishna. So what is the way we develop that affinity? Syan Mahat Sevaya Vipra. We have to serve those great sages who are purified. So when you come and like Mother Sandamani, everybody who comes, right, you give them some service, just like we see the service going on here. Just filling the bags with nuts. This is developing your taste for hearing Krishna Katha. You know, how many hours of painting did I do before I moved into the temple? I think hours and hours. I painted the whole Krishna Cove, painted the whole Swami Suite building. Lots of painting. So as you're painting, actually because of that Syan Mahat Sevaya, because I'm serving Srila Prabhupada through his representative in the temple president,